the picture to come up. And here we are. Everybody wave hello to it's coming up. We're on Facebook, and we're waiting for YouTube. Come on, YouTube, you can do it. Sending data. Oh, we're streaming. Okay. And Jordan, want to count me backwards from 5, and everybody's going to go with me, and we're going to play the opening music in just a second. So, Jordan, you ready? Let's do this.
All right, I'm ready.
Okay.
All right, here we go,
5,
Chuck. Five,
4,
four,
3,
Three,
2,
two,
1.
one.
It's going to be a long night. Here we go.
Where does yesterday's future, which is already here, meet today's future, which is about to happen, and tomorrow's future, which could be just minutes away? Welcome to Technology Revolution, the future of now, where host Bonnie D. Graham asks savvy futurists for their predictions about the tech-driven trends that are shaping our future right now. Here's your host, who will take us into the future of now, Bonnie D. Graham.
Thank you to the wonderful voice who always introduces me. And let me stop that wonderful music. We're just going to slide that down, and there we go. I'm Bonnie D. Happy to be here. We dropped the Graham. I'm just going by Bonnie D now. This is Technology Revolution, and we're still talking about the future of an industry, a business, a strategy, a lifestyle, a creative genre, a different one every week. I had a very compelling topic a couple months ago and invited my panelists back for a second look. This will be talking about the future of cannabis, the industry, plus AI. A lot of interesting breaking news. There's some competitive fields. We might get the good. We might get a little bit of the not so good, but we're going to talk about where it's all going. So I want to welcome back, gentlemen, I want you all to wave. Steve Flaks is with us again, and Lucas Gould is with us again, and Gary Decker. Happy to have all of you here. And I'm going to open with a fresh take on the industry, and with each of you, when I call your name, just wave and smile. Let me refresh my encoder screen here, which loves to freeze, and we are fine. We are streaming. Okay, so here we go. Now, welcome world to Technology Revolution Stream with me, Bonnie D, on her mic and her Scarlett mic beam. We're back for part 2 to dig even more deep where cannabis and AI take a giant leap. The green wave rolls with a rapid pace. In 38 states, it's found its place. Medical use once hidden from view, now it's a market bold and new. By 32, the buzz may ring at 428 billion. That's no small thing. Jobs are sprouting 400K strong as retail sales sing a ka-ching, ka-ching song. Globally, 444 billions in sight as investors join the upward flight. AI helps growers optimize and scale, and payments, tech now blazes a trail. You know who you are. So settle in as Bonnie D sets the stage with 3 sharp minds. They're here to engage. Steve Flaks, wave hello. From courts of D1 tennis with drive and flair to telecom deals and cannabis care, BioTrack sparked a journey, software in his sight. Now he's helped 1,500 ops take their flight. A decade deep in green tech dreams, riding the cannabis industry's highs and extremes. Sales, strategy, and purpose combine with Steve Flaks. The future of cannabis aligns just fine. Steve, did you like that?
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'll take the grade. Gary Decker is here. Gary, wave hello. A philosopher's mind met customers' calls, then climbed the ranks through corporate halls. Bankruptcies came, but never brought defeat. Gary kept moving with heart and with heat. From food biz lanes to ERP's might to SAP's agribiz guiding light. With wisdom and grit, Gary charts what's next, where data and cannabis soon intersect. Gary?
Good morning, everybody.
Cool beans? Okay.
Cool beans.
Now we have Lucas Gould. Welcome back. From hoops at school to finance gigs, then banking suits and corporate digs. Yet buying weed felt shady and slow. Though legal, it still had that outlaw glow. Lucas launched Spender, SPENDR, to shift the game, making cannabis payments earn their name. With rewards, safety, and style in play, he's lighting up retail the modern way. Lucas, I hope you like that.
It was great. Thank
Good.
you.
Got a hand up. So stay tuned, dear audience, as we explore this revolution in tech innovation and more. AI meets the cannabis industry with talent strong-willed. With Bonnie D and her savvy futurist today, the future is here to build. So what'd y'all think? Pretty cool?
Did
Very
a great
cool.
job.
Nice.
Okay.
Always
We'll
crushing
say
it.
thank you to Sylvie. Sylvie and I worked on this. I sent her your bios again. I said, let's make this a little more upbeat than last time. So there we are. So let's go around the table and get a little more filling in the dash. Those poems were just 8 lines and putting your whole lifestyle and life story and career into just a little tiny poem box. So Steve Flaks, welcome back. Steve, just anything you want to fill us in on what you've been up to? Give us up to date, a couple minutes, okay?
Yeah, just kind of we're in this cycle in cannabis right now where trade show season's approaching. So it's a lot of really fun things to look forward to for the summertime. Part of the industry is about culture and, getting to know people over the years and being able to see them in person is something that I look forward to every year. There's these, lulls and peaks and valleys throughout the year that I look forward to. There's certainly been new companies coming into cannabis that have brought in some really unique solutions. And I think that, with new folks coming into the space that have really good ideas, it makes everybody better and work harder. And, I think that cannabis needs that to keep innovating. New people coming in with new ideas and, excited to see where the next year go and thereafter.
Good. Tell us a little bit about BioTrack. I have it in your bio here. What was BioTrack or what is it?
So BioTrack is a seed to sale provider in cannabis that tracks the supply chain as well as compliance and point of sale. So kind of a lifeblood for somebody's business. Making sure that they're regulated, or they're adhering to the regulations, collecting business data, that sort of stuff. So it's sort of like SAP in terms of what it can do, but SAP, I'm assuming, has a lot more bells and whistles as it's been a software for a long time coming into cannabis.
Thank you very much. Welcome back. Nice to have you.
Thank
Gary
you.
Decker, you're up next. Want to fill in some blanks? You've been summoned by Steve to talk about SAP a little bit and about yourself. Gary, how have you been and what's new in your world, your point of view or your viewpoint, bird's eye view of the cannabis industry? Gary, go.
Well, as Steve mentioned, we probably work with bigger companies. When the industry, as you know, is runs all the way from very small businesses to very large businesses. What we bring a lot to is when you get to a certain size, you need a lot of capabilities, and you need capabilities to do things like work internationally, work across state lines, and have an awful lot of what you do automated. The big company money, in one sense, kind of ruins the business from what it is, from where it started. It was, it's been for a long time a very small, personal oriented business. Certainly, when you get Constellation Brands and Trulieve and the billion-dollar companies involved. However, done right, and what we try to do these days is to keep the innovation flowing and really use a lot of this and apply the kind of resources that you need to take advantage of some of these new technologies. There's great opportunities here. We're all kind of waiting for the overall legalization because it's going to open up a lot of channels. It's hard, for example, to do banking in California if you're a cannabis company. But while that happens, there's still a lot of innovation. There's a lot of new products out there. So it's a very exciting time.
I'm glad it's a very exciting time. Thank you. That's why we're here talking about that. We're going to be as optimistic as we can, right, Steve? We're going to talk a little bit about where that optimism, where those pockets of optimism are, and where AI can help move that up the scale. Lucas Gould, welcome back. Lucas, why don't you
Thanks for
fill in
having
the
me.
blanks? What have you been up to recently since we spoke a couple months ago? Go ahead, Lucas.
Yeah, things have been really well, just growing the business. And, we've been entering some new markets that are emerging, let's say, places like Missouri and Maryland and Ohio, where they're just seeing a lot of growth and a lot of success. So yeah, things are good. I think we're a little insulated from a lot of like the regulatory changes that are happening. Spender can work with any licensed entity, and we're ultimately a consumer platform that consumers use Spender for to make purchases. And so as long as consumers are buying cannabis, we can support them and they can use our app. So we feel really good about the future. I think there's a lot of interesting things going on. I think somebody mentioned hemp earlier, and what that's doing. And I do think there's some impact there. So excited to talk with you guys some more about, our beliefs and things that we're doing.
Wonderful. Tell me a little bit about Spender. How is it? What is it? Is it like a PayPal? Is it like a Zelle? What is it like for the industry? Just give us a little insight, Lucas.
Yeah, I think like Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal, but with like frequent flyer miles for cannabis. And so as you use Spender, you get rewards and cash back and credits that you can use back at the dispensary. And then we help the dispensary with, let's say customer engagement, marketing, loyalty. How do we, we're really helping these dispensaries engage those customers, get them back into those stores. If you think the dispensary, one of the big issues, especially in mature markets, is the saturation. There's a lot of dispensaries. And so how do you help that dispensary compete? How do you help that dispensary retain? And that's something that our platform has shown that it can do. So the consumer, again, free way to pay, they get rewards, and then the dispensary we can help them actually keep those customers into those stores versus going elsewhere.
So it's like getting Amazon points, right? For using for other things in a
Yeah,
way.
or Delta Sky Miles, or
Okay. So it's a loyalty
Chase points.
program, basically.
Yeah, in a
Loyalty.
sense, and I don't like framing it that tightly. I think it's a
Okay.
lot of things, but we do rewards and we do cash back, and we can provide exclusive discounts for people using Spender. So think of Spender as like the best place to go for deals and discounts in the cannabis industry. And it's just an overall better experience to pay because you don't have to take out cash, you don't have to pay fees at the ATM. It's just very seamless right through your phone, pay instantly, and go on with your day.
Important. I have a question for you. You mentioned that Missouri is one of the states where you're seeing more activity in terms of the retail aspect of cannabis and dispensaries. Any clue why? Is there, without getting into politics, is there something about that part of the country that all of a sudden they're saying, "Oh, we have dispensaries. Let's go buy." I don't know.
Well, they recently, recently, maybe last, I think 2 years or so, went recreational from a medical program, and they're, for better or worse, I think there's pros and cons, but they're a limited license market, just meaning that there's only so many dispensaries that are available in
Okay.
Missouri. And so what that does is it keeps out kind of some of that, like, let's say, over competition, over saturation that's happened, I think, in places like California or Michigan. And so the dispensaries are much healthier, which I think's led to some pretty good experiences for the consumer, right? Like better pricing, not totally to the floor yet, but also not super expensive like you see in other places. And so just from everything we've seen and hear, it's a healthy market on both sides of the aisle, right? Consumers, buyers and sellers. And I think that I think frankly, the state did a pretty good job at structuring the program and rolling out adult use.
And Missouri is the show me state, right, Gary? So that's
Is
why
that
I
true?
thought of it when you mentioned it. Show me. Yes. Mo, show me. Okay. Well, thank you for filling in the bios and what you've all been up to. Let's go to the part of the show where I've asked you each to send me a different fictional quote from a movie or a TV show, a character who doesn't exist in real life here or there or not ever. And I'm going to read the quote with a little background and tell me what this has to do with our topic today. So Steve is quoted Buzz Lightyear, voiced by Tim Allen. This is a classic. The movie's Toy Story, 1995. Steve, can you believe that's 30 years ago? Computer animated comedy film. The catchphrase, which I'm going to read in a second, is spoken in Pixar's Toy Story 1. It's uttered by Buzz as he prepares to fly, demonstrating his ability in a core part of his character's personality. Music by Randy Newman, blah, blah, blah. Voices of Tom Hanks, Tim Allen, Don Rickles, he's gone. Wallace Shawn, love him. John Ratzenberger, my goodness, from Cheers. All kinds of, Annie Potts is in it, my goodness gracious. Okay, so, and the toys come to life, and there we are. So the quote, of course, is to infinity and beyond. Steve, what are we talking about? Go ahead.
So this was inspired by my 6-year-old. He's got a Buzz Lightyear hoodie that he wears, and he started jumping off of the couches and saying to infinity and beyond, right? So it
Love
led
it.
me to thinking, all right, I guess as a 6-year-old, he can kind of do anything. And, he has this mentality where it's like, I can do this and I'm going to, he has these big dreams. And I feel like with where we are in our industry and the technology, anything's really possible. And there's things that have accelerated in the last 90 days that we didn't know about. And that's going to change in the next 90 days, in the next 6 months, in the next 3 years, in the next 5 years, where who knows what it will be like. So I feel like that's relevant for this conversation. And it's a little humorous, I suppose, looking back at 30 years ago being one of the first movies of its kind, I guess, that really, I thought it was good animation back then. It's probably significantly better now if they did a remake, but that's kind of where my head was at when I thought of that specific quote.
I appreciate that. I love the opportunity to talk about your son. That's great. And by the way, it is used to infinity and beyond on T-shirts. It's used by philosophers. Mathematical theorists have quoted this, Steve. And it's the title of Eli Mayor, Maor's book on the history of infinity that he wrote in 1991, which predates Toy Story by 4 years, to infinity and beyond. I wonder if somebody who wrote the story, wrote the screenplay, knew about that. So thank you very much. Very interesting. Great quote. Love to see it come up from time to time on my shows. Gary Decker, you're next. Gary has picked a quote from one of my favorite songs. I don't know how popular it ever got, but I know it was just a good song to rock to dance to, and to play. And the song is Walking on Sunshine. It's written by guitarist Kimberly Rew, R-E-W, for the British rock band Katrina and the Waves. This goes even farther back, Steve. This is a song from 1983. Let's see. It hit number 4 in Australia, number 9 in the US, number 8 in UK. It was their first American top 40 hit. And let's see. Here, Gary, I'm going to read a little background on this. Kimberly Rew told The Guardian in 2015, just recently, I'd love to say Walking on Sunshine relates to a significant event in my life, like walking out my front door, seeing a comet, being inspired. It's just a piece of simple fun, an optimistic song. Despite us not being an outstandingly cheery band, people, we're a typical young band, insecure, pessimistic. Steve, listen to this. We didn't have big hair, and we didn't look like a Motown. This is her quote. We didn't look like a Motown group. We didn't have any credibility. We didn't have a fan base in all of our mystique. We were second on the bill at a festival in Germany pop band, but we had this song. Gary, the band didn't like the song. Katrina, the lead singer, thought it wasn't them. The bassist found it irritating, and that's all I have. So here's the quote. I'm walking on sunshine. Whoa, repeated 4 times. And don't it feel good? Gary, did you know all that history of the song?
I actually did a little bit. I did some research on it. When you watch the video, this really comes out. The only one who's animated at all in this is the lead singer, and she does a great job.
Katrina.
But the rest of the band is so glum. You think, well, are they in the right tune? I mean, really?
I think they need to watch this show and go back and redo it. Steve, I think, and Lucas, I think they need some. Okay, we'll leave that one out. We'll leave that there. I think they need to talk about a local dispensary. Go ahead, Gary. Why'd you pick this for us? Interesting song.
So I like the metaphor of sunshine being illuminating. I think if you think about AI and what it can do, where the business is going, there's a lot of sunshine to be broadcast, right? There's a lot of things we don't know yet. I think one great use of AI is really in understanding and making things real, illuminating patterns that we don't know, helping drive some of the complexity, and using it appropriately. So sunshine being the things are easier to see, that they're more visible, and bringing a lot of light. And there's an element to, cannabis has parts of it that are misunderstood. The use of it sometimes misunderstood. It's seen in certain lights. I like the idea of the illumination and the positive aspects coming out.
And so, the last part of that quote, don't it feel good? Yes.
Don't feel good. Yep.
Don't it feel good? Absolutely. Very interesting. Thank you. It's Walking on Sunshine. I try not to sing on my shows, but you can't just miss that. It's just, you could go around all day. Something good happens, right? You all showed up for the show. I'm going to walk around, Steve and Gary and Lucas after the day, walking on sunshine. My guests all showed up today. Well, they always do, but what can I say? Okay, let's go to the quote from Lucas. This is very interesting. It's a quote from Westworld. Dystopian sci-fi Western drama HBO TV series. This one aired on October 2nd, 2016. So it was about 9 years ago. I'm going to read it in a second. I have to tell you, Lucas, that the debut of Westworld had HBO's highest viewership ratings for a premiere since 2014's True Detective. Westworld Season 1 was the most watched first season of any HBO original series until The Last of Us, which debuted in 2023. Westworld, a fictional technologically advanced Wild West themed amusement park populated by android hosts. Guests pay a lot of money to indulge their wildest fantasies. My lookup didn't tell me what those were. Within the park, without retaliation from the hosts, whose programming prevents them from harming humans. There's a lot of implication there. The setting expands to the real world later, mid 21st century, where people's lives are driven and controlled by a powerful AI named Rehoboam. Let's stop there. So here's the scene Lucas is quoting. William, played by Jimmy Simpson, says, "Are you real or a host?" And Angela, played by Tallulah Riley, "If you can't tell, does it matter?" Interesting. Lucas, where'd you get this one? And what does it mean for our show? Talk to me.
I don't know. I mean, it was about AI though, right? So you wanted something related to AI. And
Sure.
I think one of the things that is being talked about a lot right now is, how are we defining, there's always talk about like artificial general intelligence or artificial super intelligence and, AI becoming smarter than humans and taking all the jobs, and maybe there's good things or bad things that come from it. And I guess that quote, what interests me about it is, it's very true. It's like, at what point is the AI that's existing as human as we are, right? And if you can't tell the difference between a human and, like, let's say an AI system, then aren't we all just kind of the same? And so I just thought it's interesting when you think about it that way. Related to cannabis, I think less connection to cannabis, just more connection to AI. But I think generally speaking, it's really interesting to think about the future and to think about how AI is involved in that future, both at a, let's say, like at a human societal level, but also at a work level, whether it's how we work or how it's incorporated into the ways we work or how it's incorporated into businesses or businesses that are built around it. And, my take is that we're still in the early innings to a point where we just don't know how it's gonna shake out. And I try to remain open minded. I try to understand and learn about it. I try to incorporate it into my workflows and my business on a daily basis. But I think I also urge caution because I don't think it's like an end all be all. I don't think that it can replace some of like the human element that is currently existing. But again, when you read that quote, you're like, well, one day maybe it could, and if you can't tell, right? Like if I could talk, if Gary was not really Gary and was just an AI to mimic Gary, if I couldn't tell the difference, well, am I just talking to Gary? Maybe, right? But I think it's worth thinking about. I find it really interesting. So
It
I think when
is.
you asked me for the quote, I had just been thinking about it, and that
Yeah,
one came to mind. So
that's fine.
hopefully
I
relevant.
I like it a lot, and it makes us think about in early days when we started getting automated. I think AI was powering these answering machine messages on businesses, or when you're online and it says click here for help on a website.
Yep.
Sometimes I say to whoever it is, "Are you a bot? Or are you a human?" There is questions of is it so human NLP infused speaking that it knows how to talk like a person back to you, or is it stiff like a old-fashioned robot? So very, very interesting. If you can't tell, why should you? Yeah. Thank you very much. Thanks for the quotes, everyone. Those were really
Yeah.
good. Very appropriate. Okay, Steve, I'm going to start with you on the predictions round. You sent me four. I've got a couple from the other gentlemen. So let's start with you, and we got plenty of time. So I'm looking at prediction number two. I'll read it. You say AI will help transform how people can customize products, and with the DTC craze for THC beverages, that could be a way for people to create their own brands and more. To infinity and beyond comes in very well here, Steve Flaks. So, Steve, you want to unpack this for us? What is DTC? Talk about THC beverages. There's a lot to talk about, and then we'll get some feedback and input from Gary and Lucas. Go ahead, Steve.
So where my head was on this one is just seeing how the hemp derived space is really becoming a thing. And it's been around for a minute, but it's really starting to hit with the direct to consumer THC beverages. And I just feel like looking at certain markets like Minnesota, for example, there are hundreds and hundreds of brands of hemp derived THC beverages. And kind of leads me to believe that I guess anybody could build a brand based off of what technology they have available to do so. And if you've got a way to get into a processor that's manufacturing these beverages, and you have all these resources available to you in terms of logo creation, branding elements, kind of anything to launch a brand, you have that at your fingertips right now. And I think that with the lack of regulation in that space compared to traditional THC beverages or cannabis beverages versus like a hemp derived drink, there's so much blue ocean. Is that what they call that? Untapped markets, because although there's a lot of companies that are there, or a lot of brands that have launched, like Lucas said, it's still early. And, there's companies that launched less than 2 years ago that are doing, $75 million in revenue. And majority of that's direct to consumer. And, with, again, taking that concept and applying it to other products, anybody can launch a brand. Anybody can create a logo. Anybody can create a narrative. Anybody can do this, and it's giving people the opportunity to do something that might be a passion of theirs, that turns into a real revenue generating thing. So maybe not specifically only THC beverages, but I feel like the technology to manufacture those beverages is going to accelerate. The ability to come up with the ideas and brainstorm. I mean, you can get started pretty quickly with the technology resources that are available right now. And it's been
Absolutely.
really interesting to see different states adopt how these beverages are sold, where you can go to a traditional liquor store in Connecticut and find 40 different hemp derived beverages without having to go to a dispensary. And
Steve,
so it's
I want
interesting.
you I want you to level set hemp versus the cannabis, which is the industry we're talking about. Are they cousins? Are they brothers? Are they how I am not familiar with the technicalities of the components of these, shall we say, enhancements to
Yeah,
life,
it
these
is. It
lifestyle
is. It
enhancements.
is
Tell me,
bizarre. Hemp
what is it?
derived, I believe, and somebody else can correct me if needed, but anything that's hemp derived has a 0.3% or below THC by, I think, weight or mass or something like that. And so it's fair game to be sold. Whereas, you go to a store at a dispensary and buy a beverage that's made with, tested flower, THC, and it's limited to what you can get in terms of the dosage. And, it's taxed differently. It's not as accessible to general public. And it's a loophole right now that a lot of people have been leveraging for the last year or so. And certain markets might be coming to the end of that hemp derived product. But until that happens, it's a fair game for anybody who wants to create a brand and sell a hemp derived product. I don't know if Lucas has any more scientific answer or Gary has anything scientific about that, but
Let's find
um,
out.
it's pretty crazy how it's kind of
Thank you. Thank you.
right.
I'm totally on the outside of this, so I was just asking for some level setting so I could understand it.
Yeah.
Lucas, Gary, who wants to chime in here? Let's get a conversation going. Gary, looks like you're
I've
ready.
got more of a sort of a business slant on all of this.
Hmm.
Steve is right. Direct to consumer definitely lowers the bar. There are services out there. It is relatively easy to start a brand. What's really hard, and what we've seen over many years, is to have a business that is consistently profitable, and has legs to last for a while. And what tends to happen in this sort of area, it happened in energy drinks, for example. It happened in a variety of other places where you get this flood of brands, and the consumer ends up being almost overwhelmed by choice.
Yep.
So you either get a brand that sticks with somebody, they like what they get, they like the packaging, the marketing, etc. But mostly what you get are people trying different things. It's sort of like walking into a wine store. I've got 1,000 different wine bottles that I could choose. Do I always go to this brand, or do I say, I'm just going to look and whatever interests me? And that really makes it tough on these new brands to get enough of a following to continue to grow. So yes, it's easy to start, but you run out of money pretty quickly if you don't get people to not only buy the first time, but continue to buy. Now, one thing that's really interesting to me about AI is I think it's going to be really good at figuring out who wants what and used by marketers to drive decisions from consumers. So maybe in all those brands that get started, the ones that really might have the better chance of succeeding are the ones that not only tap into contract manufacturers to make this stuff, but tap into the AI market to market this stuff and understand better from the very beginning who they're going to attract and how they're going to continue to sell to those customers. You look at something like Monster Beverage in the energy drink, similar sort of confusion in the marketplace for a while, but they were very good. They have their very specific target, and they've been really good about building that over time. That I think is going to make the difference between the brands of either hemp-based or cannabis-based drinks. That's where the big companies have an advantage because they've got those marketing departments, and they're the ones I think that are going to be able to use some of these newer technologies to make that success much more likely, and to find the right buyer and make sure that buyer continues not just the first time, but buys regularly over time, and their revenue is at a level that sustains them.
Bringing loyalty. Lucas, join us. What do you think?
Well, I think the hemp thing is super, super interesting. To Steve's point, I think, and we have a lot of situations. I mean, we work with about 50 to 60% of the licensed legal cannabis dispensaries in the state of Ohio. And we have one instance in northern Ohio in Cleveland where we have a legitimate licensed dispensary that went through a huge regulatory process to win a license, spent a ton of money. And right next door to them is I guess like a CBD shop or a hemp shop. And that hemp shop is allowed to advertise out front with a big sign that says, get your free legal THC eighths right here. And they're allowed to do that, but the actual licensed legitimate store is not allowed to do that. And yet they're legitimately right next to each other. So imagine a world where you're a consumer and you're walking down the street and the only sign you see related to cannabis is in this CBD shop that is selling this hemp derived, what they call hemp derived THC, which gets you high, right? Just like normal THC, but is totally unregulated. And most of the time it's real THC that's been imported from another state illegally. And they're just marketing it as hemp derived so that they don't get shut down. And it's a really bad scene because it's not only hurting that dispensary that's right next door that went through all these hoops to actually do it the right way and get their products tested and follow all the rules, but it's hurting the consumer because the consumer is out there buying product that is not tested, that is not regulated, that you don't know what it is. And it's just much more widely available. So I personally, why I think I believe in kind of free access, so to speak. I think in a world where you have these regulatory bodies that are tightly regulating the legitimate product, you have to make sure that you don't have this like side stuff that's coming in that can take advantage of that. So I hope that they do more to regulate it. I think that is good and good for the consumer, and I think it's good for the businesses, assuming that the regulations are done well. But the point is, I think you need to figure out how to have, I guess, some parity between what you allow a dispensary to do versus what you allow like a CBD or a hemp shop to do.
Thank you. Steve, anything you want to comment back to your co-panelists on that?
No, and it's really not, what I'm about to say isn't necessarily AI related in terms of, the conversation, but what Lucas said about a store next to a legal store, right? If you're a tourist in a market like Florida, for example, that doesn't have rec, and you go walk down Miami Beach and you see a CBD or you see a a pipe store or something like that, a corner store, and you walk in there and you see all this cannabis product. If you hadn't been to a dispensary in your entire life, you think that's what it is. Mm-hmm. And it's the perception changes very quickly to say, hey, I went on vacation in Florida. I walked into this really crazy, cool store. I could buy all this weed, and it's a bodega that is selling not real product, and people aren't going to want to go back to dispensaries if they think that's how it is. It's not a good look.
And Steve, this does go to AI because you started your prediction about AI will help you create a brand. Anybody can create a brand and do marketing and come up with a sassy name
Sure.
and with an image. And that goes back to you can start your own business and it can be the unregulated side. And you could be, Lucas, next to a dispensary and you could have really cool signs out front, but the one next door that's regulated isn't allowed to advertise on the sidewalk. So I think this goes back to let's put this on opportunities driven by the AI democratization of brand creation. Gary, can I say this? And everybody, and that brings an opportunity that may run afoul of how the business is structured and what they should and shouldn't be doing. Can I say all of that? Okay. So Steve, we did tie it. I wanted to tie it back to AI.
Cool.
Your topic was your prediction was really
Cool.
important to this conversation. So I want to thank you. Thank you for that. Gary, I'm going to your prediction number one. This is interesting. You say AI already is used to improve consistency in grading fruit and vegetables. The expectation was initially that AI would improve overall quality, but in practice, it is consistency that has improved dramatically. We're talking about cannabis here, I assume. The quality data can be stored and made available to buyers to provide real evidence over time, not a simple statement on a package. So, Gary, can you tie this into our cannabis or hemp discussion? Go ahead.
Yeah, there's a couple of things, but in a lot of ways, I think you asked the question, and it's come up before. How do buyers know what they're getting?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that can be done very easily, and we already see this in certain companies in the food business. Bumblebee Tuna, for example, puts a QR code on their cans where you can actually track and say where the fish in that can came from. So cannabis could very well do the same thing in terms of linking together what the grower does, what the processors do. All those things can be put together and made available to somebody really quickly with an app on their phone that says, "What am I buying here?" Kind of goes back to that first discussion we just had about new brands. I've got 20 brands in front of me. I scan a code on 5 of them. 3 of them say, have no idea. 2 of them say, well, here's all of the background information we have, and we can show you step by step, the kind of quality we've done, the test results we've done, whatever. I'm going to be a lot more confident about somebody who's got that kind of information. And it's not that I have to do some deep research. I can do it right there in the dispensary on my phone. That's where this gets to be really, really interesting to pull together vast amounts of information from a broad swath of the industry and put it all together, because that's what AI does really, really well, is it grabs a whole bunch of information and makes a lot of sense of it. You could even put a little blurb like Google does now and says, I analyzed that information and I've seen this, this, and this. But literally it's delivering that confidence to the buyer that says, what am I getting? Is it good quality? Is it not only is it legal, but is it what I expect it to be? And then you can drive that even further to say, what kind of a person is using this kind of product, and that gets into the marketing. Do I fit the profile of people that this product is aimed at? There's a lot of really interesting things, and again, AI is really good at pulling a lot of information together and making sense of it, understanding patterns, seeing how things are done. I think there's a great use, especially with this proliferation of brands and proliferation of markets, and that what I'm expecting to be a lot of consumer confusion as a result of it.
I think
Yeah.
that's what we're seeing. Steve, go ahead, join in.
I was just going to say, I feel like one of the big regulators in the cannabis industry is Metric, and they're about to release a product called Metric Retail ID, which is essentially a QR code that you can scan to get all the information about the batch, the lot, where it's grown, test results and all that stuff. And, that's going to be all sent back to a central location, obviously. And then you can ask questions about your products that you've been selling. And you know what I mean? Like, I feel like it's going to, and it kind of goes along with one of my other predictions, but, reports are going to be outdated. It's going to be asking questions about your data sets that people care about and want to get real answers right away based off of all the data they've collected through all the different sources that they have, internally.
Is this part of blockchain? This is reminding me of early discussions where we had on this show years ago talking about blockchain with that single point of truth, knowing who caught that fish and what boat did it go on and how did it get to the processor and how was
Yeah.
it chilled and how was it packaged, how was it labeled, how was it traveled to the supermarket, all of that truth, that single point of truth. And that sounds like what you're talking about. Gary, you want to comment on that?
It's a little different because when we're talking about blockchain, the big question was, how do I get, should I get the data? Should I be able to read this data? If I'm a competitor, do I, I need to protect this from people that shouldn't see this. Whereas I think we're talking here about broadly available, this is either a distributor or consumer, whoever. So it's a lot more wide open. I think that's one of the things, but also we didn't have AI in those days, at least not to the extent we do now.
Yep.
So the ability to deal with these truly massive amounts of data, that was one of the big concerns back in the day when we were really talking about blockchain. It's how do I take what is truly massive amounts of data and actually be able to use it? And the technology has just improved to a point where we can deal with a lot more, but there's more of a sense of I want to make this broadly available versus I'm going to have very specific and competitively confidential information that I want certain people to see, but other people to not see.
Proprietary. Thank you.
Yeah.
Lucas, anything you want to chime in on this one? He's thinking.
Let's keep rolling. I mean, I have lots of thoughts, but I'll save them.
You sure? Okay.
Yeah.
Steve, I want to go back to you just for a second before I go to one of Lucas's predictions and talk about this consumer knowledge this QR code. Will this be on a bottle? Would this be on a baggie? I don't know how they sell this stuff. Forgive me. I don't do this. How will they see this code? Will it be on the storefront? Will it be on
Packaging. Be on the packaging for
Okay.
a unit. Yep. So if I'm and I may have misspoke. I don't know if it's for the end consumer, but certainly
Okay.
internally being able to scan it and see, as a grower and working at an operator, being able to scan it and track it. I assume it's going to be for the retailers, consumers as well, where they can see what they're getting and where it's coming from and all that. But yeah, I mean it's helpful. Metrics always done RFID in terms of tracking, and I think this is a way to modernize that element. And obviously, they have government data, or they have data for 30 markets in terms of the cannabis operators, the licenses, the activity of the plants, all the data points. So I feel like, there's a lot of information you could comb through to get really good insights about the industry through
Good
that.
to know. Thank you very much. Good conversation. Lucas, I'm looking at your prediction. You said for this part 2, you say AI will help growers dial in plants for certain use cases or disease states. This is a new topic for us. Lucas, you want to unpack this, please?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think one of the most impactful ways, or one of the best ways, let's say, cannabis can be impactful is in finding solutions to some of these specific disease states. And I think I said this in the last one we did, but you already saw this with like epilepsy and Charlotte's Web and their ability to like really dial in strains that really made a difference. And again, the epilepsy thing I think it's been a game changer. And Charlotte's Web, I think, was one of the originators of it. And so I think that's just one thing, one of probably many that exist and where cannabis can be helpful. And I think AI should not only accelerate the speed at which like these, let's say, new discoveries are coming out, but also like perfect how they work, right? And so that's my hope. Whether or not that happens, I guess time will tell, but my belief would be that you've already seen it before. AI should be accelerating the pace, should be accelerating or increasing the efficacy of these things. And if that happens, I think that is really one of the best ways that cannabis can improve people's lives. And I'm a believer that cannabis is ultimately a quality of life product. It's a wellness product, it's a quality of life product. And if you can actually find ways to leverage it I'm not going to say cure, but let's say mitigate the impact of some of these diseases and some of these chronic conditions that people have, I mean, it's a game changer. And not only should it change and improve people's lives, but I think it also will help accelerate like the destigmatization of cannabis broadly make people more comfortable to come into the space, give the government more comfort to push federal legalization, other things, and overall like change the narrative that cannabis isn't a drug, but instead a true kind of quality of life, life improvement substance that can make a real difference. So I hope that's what happens. I hope that's how people use AI is to find those things. But again, time will tell if people actually do that.
Thank you. I like the optimism. Steve, you're nodding. Anything you want to add to this?
Yeah, I feel like there's always going to be more proof that's needed that it's actually a really good product for wellness. And I think that, where I see AI in this example is medical conditions and understanding the various conditions that are out there, and then figuring out what cannabis products work for certain conditions and being able to match product with conditions that are out there. And I think that also goes into kind of the boots on the ground, or the folks that are working at the stores, to understand what that is and not just talk about, hey, this is an indica, this is going to put you in the couch, or this is a sativa and it's going to make you run around the block. Where it's a little different, it's, hey, why are you coming into the dispensary today? What do you have mentally, physically, emotionally that you are dealing with? And how can we find you the right product for that specific condition or reason that you're here? And if there's AI driven bud tenders nowadays where it kind of predicts what to give them or kind of does what I'm explaining. But the fact that the folks at the stores aren't necessarily as educated as you'd want them to be, and they're not all pharmacists per se, there needs to be better ways to identify what's being prescribed or sold at these stores to help the customers. And, to kind of dovetail on that, there's markets that are medical only, there's markets that are medical and rec only, there's medical patients, and there's recreational customers. There's difference between a patient and a customer. And I think that that's overlooked a lot of times, and everybody thinks it's a recreational product, and the medical element kind of goes away in certain aspects.
Thank you. Gary, anything you want to say? I've got one more prediction from Steve I want to bring up. But Gary, any comments on this?
It brings up an interesting thought that I wanted to bring up, which is I think as we work with AI, we will understand what it does and what it doesn't do. And some of the things that Steve's talked about fit into that. I don't know that AI will be good at identifying that a certain strain of cannabis is actually going to be useful for a certain condition. But once they identify that's a real human sort of thing. But once they identify it, what AI is really good at is capturing a lot and working with a lot of information. So once those patterns are identified, AI will help not only not discover them, but find them and be able to use them. And it's things like being able to work with the basic language, with standard language that lets people in dispensaries find that out. So you don't have to be a data scientist to have a customer who says, I have this condition, what strain would be useful for me? You can literally ask that question to your large language model and get an answer. And then also, AI is good at taking something and pinpointing and developing it more quickly. We've seen that in the pharmaceutical area. So the discoveries that may be human-based can quickly turn into results that are well known and make that information available all the way down to even the smallest retailer, who really should be able to use that and use it very effectively without a lot of specialized training. So it's a real interesting combination of what humans, I think, may always need to be good at versus what AI is proven to be good at and will continue to develop to be even better at.
Thank you. And I'm going to segue into one last prediction. We've got about 6 minutes left. Steve, this is your prediction number 3. AI will help how people find firsthand reviews of cannabis businesses. Okay,
Yep.
I think this is a good segue from where we've just come from. Steve, you want to take about 2 minutes to go for this?
Yeah, I mean, I think that similar to the conditions and understanding, conditions and, potential solutions to those, it's the same thing with reviews. I feel like um, cannabis industry is unique in the sense that uh, a lot of the ownerships groups don't really know exactly what's going on at their stores because of certain reasons, and they leave it up to the local people. And I don't think that's a true reflection of the dispensary when your general manager is saying everything's all hunky dory and or it's not good. So I feel like a better way for folks to obviously leave reviews, but then research those reviews to figure out why they should go to a place, why they shouldn't go to a place, what's the overall product selection at this spot. And I'd say that, for anybody that's looking to get end users on their platform, like Lucas, you know, they want to know that information and they want to
Mhm.
know, they want to vet where they're going and they want to do it more efficiently. And I think that that's still in its infancy. I certainly think there are some review platforms out there, but there's nothing that's, you know, I don't know. I feel like it's a lot of biased reviews that are being left, not a lot of unbiased reviews from just the common folk. And Lucas deals with a lot more consumers than I probably do, so maybe he has more insight. But I feel like that's a big need here to really understand who's doing well based off of mass versus just a
Does
manager telling his
does
boss
Yelp have a
everything's good.
category for a dispensary, Steve? Is Yelp? Yeah. Huh.
Yeah,
I
there's a
think
couple.
so.
I don't know. I
Yeah.
haven't really looked too far into that, but there's a handful of companies that are doing that, but it
Yeah.
can always be done better.
Interesting. Lucas, anything you want to chime in? We've got about 3 minutes. Go.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree. I think the one issue I've always had when it comes to like using reviews or those AI bud tenders that are recommending products based on, oh, I want to sleep and, or I want to eat a lot of food or whatever is I'm such a believer in that the plant impacts everybody very differently. And
Hmm.
Yep.
what works for me may not work for Gary, may not work for Steve. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. And, again, like could have the exact same product and the exact same delivery method, the same amount of dose, and we're going to just behave so differently. And so I think I've always found it super hard to trust, let's say, like the mass data set. And if 100 people said it worked for sleep, well, is that really going to work for me too? So I more believe in how do you personalize, how do you use data on your experiences with the
Hmm.
plant over time so that it learns to dial it in for you specifically versus others who may behave like you. And so I think that's actually where Spender and companies like Spender that do touch the consumer directly can play that role where
Yep.
a lot of these AI bud tenders are being deployed on the dispensary's website, and the dispensary is using it essentially as like an upsell mechanism so that I tap into the menu, it says, hey, do you want to sleep or do you want activity or whatever, and it recommends 3, 4, 5 certain products, and it thinks will do that for you. And I think instead you reverse that and you actually give that to the consumer, and the consumer logs over time each product they've tried, and does it work for sleep or for activity or for food or whatever, and it learns what's working for you at a personal level. And so each AI is personalized to the individual versus
Hmm.
personalized to the product. And I think that is where we could start to see a lot of value in using AI to look at, again, mass data sets, again, not at a product level but at a person
At a
level. and I,
personal
and I think
level.
that's where it starts to get really interesting.
Look, movie reviews. I may be horrified by that sci-fi movie, and Gary would go and he'd say, "Wow, it's the best movie I've ever seen."
Yeah.
Makeup, I might have an allergy to it. I buy something in the supermarket, and it might give me a stomach ache, and I can't go to work for 3 days. Who knows? Gary, I'll give you 1 minute to respond, then we got to close. Anything?
This all is useful, but I think Lucas pinpointed out there's a question always when you look at Yelp or any of the reviews. What am I seeing? Am I seeing um, marketing, or am I seeing real information? And the more we get to individual responses, the more the large language models can use all that to help. I think that will improve the trustworthiness, but also give people a better sense of what they're really getting. Is it advertising, or is it real information I can use?
Thank you. I want to thank the three of you so much. Really good discussion today. Sylvie gave me a closing poem. I've never had a closing poem before, but she asked me to read this. I'll tell you who she is. But before I do this, quickly, I want all of you to just shake your finger on the count of three. We're going to say no, no, no. People say the future is already here, and our answer is 1, 2, 3. Come on, join me. No, no. Oh, I can't hear you. Come on. No, no, no. That's it, because it didn't happen yet. When I asked the question, that was going to the future. Now it's in the past. So as we wrap this ride through AI and green, we've glimpsed a future once unforeseen. From software sales to banking bold, our guests shared truths, insights, and gold. Cannabis evolves with tech as guide, innovation rising like a tide. Thanks for tuning in to my display today. Appreciation to Steve, Gary, and Lucas from my heart in every way. So let me put on the outro music. Stick around, guests, and we'll talk for a minute. And let me get the music up here. And here we go. And okay, here we go. Okay.
Are you tired of hearing the future is already here? We are too. That may have been yesterday's future, but today's future hasn't happened yet. Take a deep breath, tune out the hype, the noise, and turn up the volume. Savvy, art of the possible technology visionaries talking about how today's innovations right now are shaping every aspect of our real future. We'll laser focus our spotlight on buzzworthy tech like artificial intelligence, machine learning, Internet of Things, augmented reality, and lots more. Clear your calendar and open your mind for Technology Revolution, the future of now. With the most upbeat host on global radio, Bonnie D. Graham. Listen anywhere, anytime, on any device.
I love that outro. That was recorded 6 years ago, and it still gives me a jolt to listen to it. I want to thank everybody for being here, and Jordan, our engineer, and everybody wave goodbye to our streaming by LinkedIn, by Facebook.